Well, never mind the stereotypical combine harvester and the rolling miles of grain fields. Farming comes in many shapes and sizes. That's certainly true at the Mason Street Farm in central Victoria. The quarter-acre parcel has produced vegetables for decades, and it's still in active production. We've visited the farm before, and now the farm hopes to bring more people in and provide paid internships with the help of an online crowdsourcing campaign. I visited the farm yesterday and found out more from farmers Angela Moran and Jesse Brown.
Mason Street is named after the Mason family who owned the land in the early 1900s, and it's been under some form of cultivation for over 100 years now, and it's unique because most urban farms sort of pop up in an urban center, not an urban farm that has been enveloped by development.
Now, it's a quarter acre, is that right?
Yes.
And so what is that? Is that the equivalent of like 2 or 3 city lots, or can you describe it for
Well,
people?
in today's zoning, or I guess land use planning, it would be 4 house lots. I think maybe 10 years ago, I'm not sure, it would be 2 house lots. It's considered 2 house lots here, but they're big house lots.
So a quarter acre by some standards of farming might be considered small, but you've got a lot of food growing here. Can you tell us about your output?
Yeah, well, I grow for mainly 2 cafes, the Relish Food and Coffee and the Hot and Cold Cafe in Cook Street Village, and I have a whole roster of other restaurants that I grow for. So the scale here is really great for mid-sized restaurants. We meet their demand.
And primarily, what do you grow, or is it just everything?
I really do focus on cash crops, which are salad greens and tomatoes and basil, but I grow almost everything that you could think of. All the winter crops, kale, chard, leeks, potatoes, and all sorts.
Now, tell us about this internship program. You guys are here at it by yourselves right now. I mean, I know you have people coming in, but this is a new idea, the internship.
Mm-hmm. I guess I've been working within food security in Victoria for 7 years now, and I feel like I'm reaching a pretty slim demographic of people that have access to that education. And we thought we would raise some funds to be able to provide a couple of jobs next year to people that may flip through those calendars for different sorts of workshops and could never even consider going to it because they've got a full-time job or they have a family. And this way, it's a part-time internship. They could maybe work it into their life that they have already, or it could add on to what they're already doing.
So who would you foresee being likely candidates?
Well, we're really open to a lot of different people. We mostly just want to diversify the demographic of people that have access to food skills and farming education. We would like to offer the internship to people that typically may have had some barriers in their life and want to learn about this to get some autonomy and maybe not have to go to Costco or Walmart anymore. It's not a choice for everyone going to Walmart. It's a necessity sometimes.
Now, as we stand here, we're looking around. You've got a lot of, like you say, kale, spinach, what have you, leaf vegetables, all sorts of vegetables growing in the ground. But you're branching out here. You want to do something really innovative. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I'd love to tell you about this new farming technique we're going to start building here called an aquaponics system. And it's unique in the fact that it uses 90% less water than traditional organic farming practices. And it allows us to grow more food in a smaller amount of space with less labor. It provides a lot of solutions to problems we face feeding people in the city and also just being able to make a decent living. Aquaponics is a system that grows fish and vegetables in a recirculating fashion in a greenhouse.
What's the setup? The fish tanks are below and the veggies above, or how does it work?
So the fish tanks are sitting on the ground, and they produce a nutrient-rich water from the fish. That water is then pumped up into grow beds that sit above the fish tanks themselves, and it's a living system. There's a lot of biology and mycology in the gravel that the plants grow in these beds, and that biology and the plants uptake the nutrient and grow and filter the water and oxygenate the water, and then gravity just simply feeds the water back down to the fish clean. So in that way, it is a closed loop.
So what kind of vegetables and what kind of fish would you ideally have in there?
Well, we're going to start with koi and potentially perch, but koi are great fish in that they don't require they don't have a lot of high needs, and they're beautiful and they eat vegetables. so we don't need to invest in a lot of expensive fish feed. And any kind of vegetables can be grown in there. We're going to start with salad greens and things like basil and tomatoes, and we're just going to experiment and see what we can do. I mean, this is a relatively new technique. It has been used extensively in the States for the last 10 or 15 years, but there are some challenges in our climate, but we feel that it'll be a successful endeavor. And
I guess the koi would do reasonably well in our climate. Like they're fairly hardy as compared to some more tropical fish.
They're very hardy. Yeah, they don't need any heat added through the winter, so we can save on any kind of energy costs there. In the long term, we would love to be growing food fish, which we'll be doing in the next couple years, and we just will get our basic system up and running. And once that's up, we can start looking at alternative energy sources that we can use to heat the tank, so we can evolve what we're able to produce.
What kind of fish might you, hypothetically, if all things going as planned, would you like to move on to? I'm trying to think of what are good fish to eat.
Tilapia.
Yeah,
they're
vegetarian fish essentially.
They're omnivores, which most fish are omnivores. I think they need about 30% to 40% of their diet to be a meat-based food. But we can also grow black soldier fly larvae. In the process of growing them, they produce a compost material, and they're a great protein source for these fish. Duckweed, which grows exponentially in a small amount of space. Things like that as well. They also eat veggie greens and stuff that we couldn't sell.
So you guys have got big plans. What would you like to see ultimately grow out of this? Because that sounds like that's part of your goal. As you said, you're trying to diversify the people who are thinking more about their food and where it comes from and so on.
With this campaign that we're running right now on www.indiegogo.com/farmforthefuture, we're wanting to really try and build and contribute to a green economy in Victoria. This new approach, aquaponics, really expands on the possibilities for urban farming. It brings urban farming onto the concrete. I guess we really just want to offer solutions that are working, as opposed to just talking about solutions. Once we have this model up and running, then we can actually go to council, go to City of Victoria and say, here, we've got some solutions to move forward and create a food policy in Victoria.
Angela Moran and Jesse Brown are farmers at the Mason Street Farm in central Victoria. And if you want to find out more about their crowdsourcing campaign, you can go online to indiegogo.com/farmforthefuture. And if you want to visit the farm in person, they're having an open house on Mason Street between Cook and Vancouver on December the 16th. It's 3.5 minutes to 7 o'clock on a Thursday morning. This is CBC Radio 1 on the island. 1 on